The space around the outer edge of the Sol system buzzed with activity. 12 massive ships hung in the black void like sleeping giants. Each ship was different from the others. Some looked like they were made of crystal and glowed with soft, blue light. Others were dark metal spheres covered in strange patterns. A few seemed to be made of pure energy that shifted and danced in colors that had no names. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Crystal Dawn. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like pale blue glass. His forearms moved slowly as he checked the reports from his crew. Through the large windows of his ship, he could see the other vessels in the fleet. Each one belonged to a different race from across the galaxy. "Status report," Kethver said in his musical voice. The words came out like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "All ships are in position, Admiral," replied his second-in-command. "The primitive world is exactly where our scouts said it would be. Third planet from their yellow star, they call it Earth?" Kethver nodded. This was routine work. Every few hundred years, the Galactic Council found another young race that had just learned to leave their home planet. Most of these new species were excited to meet older, wiser races. They usually begged to join the Council. They offered their best resources in exchange for advanced technology. It was always the same story. On the bridge of the colliery ship, thousands of insect-like creatures worked as one mind. They spoke without words, sharing thoughts through their hive connection. The Queen Mind was pleased. Another primitive race to add to their collection. The humans would make good workers once they were properly guided. These mammals show promise, the Queen Mind thought to all her children. Their cities are well organized. They have basic fusion power. They even have a few small ships in space around their world. With proper training, they could serve the hive well. The colliery ship was a dark sphere covered in holes. Through these holes, the insect workers moved in and out like bees in a hive. The ship itself was alive, grown rather than built. It pulsed with a slow heartbeat that could be felt through the metal floors near the back of the formation. The ethereal ship was harder to see. It looked like a cloud of glowing gas held together by invisible forces. Inside this cloud, beings of pure energy floated and danced. They had no solid bodies, existing as patterns of light and thought. Elder Zixthara spoke to the others through waves of energy. "I sense something unusual about this system," she said. Her voice was like the sound of distant thunder. "The quantum patterns are different than expected." The other ethereals gathered around her, their forms brightening with interest. "Different how?" asked another elder. "I am not certain yet," Zixthara replied. "But these humans may be more than they appear to be." The conversation was interrupted by a communication from Admiral Kethver's ship. "All fleet commanders, prepare for standard first contact protocols. We will begin transmission to the primitive world in 1 hour." On the bridge of the Drakmor warship, Captain Vexahan laughed. The Drakmor looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved hundreds of species. To them, this was just another easy victory. "Look at their pathetic defenses," Vexahan said to his crew. "A few orbital stations with primitive weapons. Their largest ship is smaller than our smallest fighter. This will be over before it begins," his crew hissed in agreement. The Drakmor ship was built for war. It was long and sharp, covered in weapons and armor. Spikes jutted out from its hull like the teeth of some ancient beast. The ship was painted blood red with symbols of conquest covering its sides. The other ships in the fleet were just as confident. The Aquari delegation floated in their water-filled vessel, tentacles waving in amusement. The stone-like Garan delegates sat perfectly still in their mountain ship, patient as always. The insectoid Vexpri chattered excitedly about new technology to steal. The plant-based Savani rustled their leaves in anticipation of new worlds to see. Each race had their own reasons for being here, but they all agreed on one thing. The humans would submit, just like every other primitive species before them. It was the natural order of things. The strong ruled the weak. The advanced guided the primitive. It had been this way for 10,000 years. Admiral Kethver checked the time. Soon, they would make contact with Earth. He expected the usual response: fear, panic, desperate pleas for mercy. Then would come the negotiations. The humans would offer whatever they had in exchange for protection. They would beg to join the Council as junior members. They would accept whatever terms they were given. The Admiral had done this 17 times before. It was always the same. The primitive species were grateful for contact with advanced civilizations. They understood that they were inferior and needed guidance. They accepted their place in the galactic order without question. Begin scanning their communications, HFY ordered. I want to know everything about their leaders, their military, their resources. The crew worked quickly. Streams of data flowed across their crystal displays. The humans had hundreds of languages, dozens of nations, and billions of people. Their technology was basic but functional. They had nuclear weapons, but nothing that could threaten a galactic fleet. Their space program was small and focused on exploration rather than war. They appear to have no unified planetary government, reported the scanning officer. Multiple power centers. This may complicate negotiations. HFY waved a dismissive hand. It matters little. Once they see our fleet, their leaders will cooperate. Fear has a way of bringing unity to divided species. On the colliery ship, the hive mind was already making plans. They would need to build worker colonies on the human world. The humans would need to be educated about their new role in the galaxy. Some would resist at first, but they would learn. They always did. The Queen Mind selected the best locations for hive cities, near large population centers where there would be plenty of workers, close to natural resources that could be harvested. Away from the more dangerous human military bases, at least until the humans accepted their new situation, Captain Vexahan was less patient than the others. Why do we waste time with talk? He demanded over the fleet communication channel. We should simply take what we want, show them our power, break their will to resist. Because, Admiral HFY replied calmly, willing servants are more valuable than broken slaves. We have learned this lesson many times over the millennia. Fear may bring quick submission, but respect and gratitude bring lasting loyalty. The Drakmore way is more honest, Vexahan growled. At least our slaves know where they stand. And how? Many of your slave worlds have rebelled over the centuries? Asked Elder Zixthara. Her energy form pulsed with amusement. We ethereals prefer the longer view. A species that joins willingly will serve faithfully for thousands of years. The debate was old and familiar. Each race had their preferred method of dealing with primitive species, but the result was always the same. The new species joined the galactic community as junior partners. They provided resources and labor. In return, they received protection and limited access to advanced technology. It was a good system. It had worked for 10,000 years. It had brought peace and order to the galaxy. The strong guided the weak. The advanced protected the primitive. Everyone had their place in the great chain of being. Time passed slowly in the cold vacuum of space. The alien fleet waited in perfect formation. Their ships hummed with power, ready for whatever response the humans might give. But none of them expected any real resistance. How could a species that had barely left their home planet challenge races that had ruled the stars for millennia? Admiral HFY looked out at the distant blue dot that was Earth. Soon, another primitive world would join the galactic community. Another species would learn their place in the greater order. Another victory for civilization over chaos. He had no way of knowing that everything he believed about the natural order of the galaxy was about to be proven wrong. He could not imagine that the primitive humans had been watching and learning, and preparing for this moment. He did not know that humanity had spent centuries getting ready for visitors exactly like him. The countdown timer on his bridge showed 30 minutes until first contact. Admiral HFY smiled, showing teeth like blue diamonds. This would be easy. It was always easy. He was about to learn just how wrong he could be. Admiral HFY stood at his command station as the moment arrived. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, their crystalline fingers dancing over control panels that glowed with soft light. The time for first contact had come. Begin. Transmission, Kethver commanded. His voice carried the authority of 10,000 years of galactic civilization. The communications officer nodded. Across the fleet, all 12 ships turned their most powerful transmitters toward the small blue world orbiting the yellow star. The message they sent was ancient, written in the earliest days of the Galactic Council. It had been used to contact hundreds of primitive species over the millennia. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet of this star system, the message began. We are representatives of the Galactic Council, a peaceful alliance of advanced civilizations. We come in friendship to welcome you into the greater galactic community. Please respond on this frequency and prepare to receive our diplomatic delegation. The transmission was broadcast in 17 different mathematical languages, each one designed to be understood by any species capable of space travel. It included star charts showing the positions of council worlds, basic scientific principles to prove their advanced knowledge, and instructions for establishing peaceful contact on Earth. The message was received by every radio telescope, satellite, and communication array on the planet. Within minutes, the news had spread to every government, every military command center, and every major news organization. Humanity knew they were no longer alone in the universe. Admiral Kethver leaned back in his command chair and waited. The response time would tell him a lot about human society. A quick panicked reply meant weak leadership and poor organization. A delayed response usually indicated internal debates about how to respond. Either way, the result would be the same. The humans would beg for mercy and accept whatever terms they were offered. How long until we receive their response? Asked the admiral second in command. Historical data suggests between 1 and 6 hours, Kethver replied. Primitive species need time to overcome their fear and organize a response. Some try to hide from us at first, others immediately surrender. A few attempt to negotiate, but they never have anything we actually want. On the colliery ship, the hive mind was already making detailed plans. They had studied the human communications networks and found them surprisingly well organized. The humans had global communication systems, extensive data networks, and coordinated military structures. For a primitive species, they showed remarkable unity. These mammals may adapt well to hive protocols, the Queen Mind observed to her children. They already show group coordination on a planetary scale. With proper guidance, they could become valuable workers. The colliery workers busied themselves preparing integration protocols. They would need to establish hive nodes in major human population centers. The humans would need to learn the proper ways of thinking and working. Individual thought would have to be discouraged in favor of collective efficiency, Captain. Vexahen paced the bridge of his warship like a caged beast. The Drakmor preferred action to waiting. They had conquered their first star system within 50 years of developing spaceflight. They could not understand why other species wasted time with talking when force was so much more effective. This is foolish, Vexahen growled to his crew. We should simply land on their world and take what we want. Why give them time to prepare defenses? His weapons officer, a scarred veteran of dozens of conquests, nodded in agreement. The longer we wait, the more time they have to think of ways to resist us. Patience, came Elder Zixthara's voice over the communication channel. The ethereal's energy form pulsed with calm certainty. These humans may surprise us. I sense unusual patterns in the quantum foam around their world. Something is not as it appears? The other races dismissed her concerns. The ethereals were always seeing mysterious energy patterns and hidden meanings. They were ancient and wise, but they tended to overthink simple situations. These humans were just another primitive species stumbling into galactic society. Hours passed. The alien fleet maintained their position at the edge of the solar system, their sensors constantly scanning human activity. They watched as military forces around Earth went to high alert. They observed emergency meetings of world leaders. They recorded frantic communications between government Agencies, all of this was normal, expected, every species reacted the same way when they realized they were not alone in the universe. Fear, confusion, desperate attempts to understand what was happening. The humans were following the same pattern as hundreds of species before them, but there were also things that puzzled the alien observers. Human military units moved with unusual precision and speed. Their communication networks remained stable despite the massive shock of first contact. Most strange of all, several large installations in the outer solar system simply went dark, disappearing from sensors as if they had never existed. "Are you recording these anomalies?" Admiral Keffer asked his science officer. "Yes, Admiral. The humans appear to have more extensive space infrastructure than our initial scans detected. Some of it is using stealth technology we do not immediately recognize." Keffer frowned. Most primitive species barely had orbital satellites when the Council found them. The humans seemed to have permanent installations throughout their star system. That was unusual, but not necessarily threatening. They probably had automated mining operations or research stations. "What is the status of their response?" "No official communication yet, Admiral. However, we are detecting increased activity at their major communication facilities. Analysis suggests they are preparing a unified planetary response." This was also unusual. Most species either responded immediately with local governments speaking for themselves, or remained silent while trying to hide from the scary aliens. The humans seemed to be taking time to coordinate a single, planet-wide answer. On the bridge of the Aquari ship, the tentacled delegates floated in their pressurized water environment. They were peaceful traders who had joined the Council centuries ago. They found the human response interesting rather than threatening. "These mammals show remarkable organization," observed Captain Reeftha, her tentacles swirling in thoughtful patterns. "Most species we contact are either too frightened to respond coherently or too primitive to mount a coordinated reaction." Her navigation officer agreed. "Their communication networks span the entire planet. They have achieved unprecedented global coordination for such a young species." The Aquari had extensive experience with primitive species. They often served as peaceful intermediaries when the Council made first contact. They had learned to read the signs that indicated how a species would adapt to galactic civilization. The humans were showing signs they had never seen before. Deep in the asteroid belt, automated human sensors watched the alien fleet. The Watchers had been in position for over a century, designed to look like natural space debris while monitoring for exactly this type of contact. They recorded everything: ship configurations, energy signatures, communication frequencies, weapon systems. The data flowed through hidden relay networks to command centers on Earth and beyond. Humanity had known this day would come. They had been preparing for it since the first detection of artificial signals from deep space decades ago. Every plan, every system, every strategy had been designed with one goal in mind: survival. But the aliens did not know about the Watchers. They did not know about the preparations. They did not know that humanity had been studying galactic civilization from the shadows for generations. They believed they were dealing with a primitive species having their first contact with advanced aliens. Finally, after 18 hours of waiting, the human response came. It was not what the aliens expected. The message was brief, transmitted on the same frequency the Council had used for their initial contact. The signal was clean and powerful, suggesting sophisticated communication technology. But the content was puzzling. "Message received and understood," the human response began. "We appreciate your interest in establishing formal relations with Earth. Please maintain your current position while we dispatch a representative to discuss the situation. Estimated arrival time is 72 hours. Thank you for your patience." Admiral Keffer stared at the message display, reading it several times. This was not how primitive species were supposed to respond. There was no fear in the message, no begging for mercy, no desperate offers of tribute. The humans were treating this like a business meeting between equals. "Did they just ask us to wait?" asked his second in command. "It appears so, Keffer." replied slowly. They seem to think they are in a position to dictate terms. Across the fleet, the other commanders were equally puzzled. The colliery hive mind buzzed with confusion. The humans were not following any known pattern of primitive species behavior. They were acting as if they had some kind of choice in the matter. Captain Vexahan was less confused than angry. They dare to make demands of us? We should show them the error of their thinking immediately. Patience, Elder Zixthara urged again. But even she was beginning to sense that something was fundamentally different about this contact. The quantum patterns around Earth were becoming more complex, not less. It was as if the planet itself was preparing for something. What kind of representative could they possibly send? Wondered Captain Reeftha. A delegation of their planetary leaders? Some kind of diplomatic shuttle with gifts and offerings? The aliens had seen it all before. Desperate leaders in small, crude ships laden with their planet's most valuable resources. Scientists eager to trade anything for advanced technology. Military officers trying to negotiate surrender terms that would preserve some dignity for their species. But as the hours passed, something else became clear. The humans were not preparing a desperate diplomatic mission. Long-range sensors detected massive amounts of activity in the inner solar system. Power signatures that seemed too large for a primitive species. Movement patterns that suggested military rather than diplomatic preparations. Admiral, the science officer reported, we are detecting unusual energy buildups throughout the human star system. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Kethver studied the sensor readings. The humans were definitely preparing something, but their technology was so different from standard galactic patterns that it was hard to analyze. Their power system seemed incredibly inefficient by Council standards, but the raw output was surprisingly high. Their ships moved with crude brute force rather than elegant energy manipulation, but they were faster than expected. Are they preparing to attack us? Asked the weapons officer. With what? Kethver laughed. Our smallest escort ship has more firepower than their entire space force. If they want to commit suicide, that is their choice. But privately, the Admiral was beginning to feel the first stirrings of unease. Something about this situation felt different from every other first contact he had experienced. The humans were not following the script. They were not behaving like a primitive species should behave. Elder Zixthara's energy form pulsed with growing concern. The quantum distortions around Earth were intensifying. Whatever the humans were preparing, it was something the ethereals had never encountered before. Something that bent the very fabric of space-time in ways that should not be possible for such a young species. I strongly recommend we increase our sensor sweeps, she transmitted to the fleet. These humans are not what they appear to be. But the other commanders dismissed her warnings. The ethereals always saw mysteries where none existed. These were just primitive mammals trying to act important. When their representative arrived in whatever crude ship they could cobble together, reality would assert itself. The humans would learn their place in the galactic order, just like every other species before them. The alien fleet settled in to wait, confident in their superiority and certain of the outcome. They had no way of knowing that everything they believed about primitive species was about to be challenged. They could not imagine that the crude, inefficient technology they were detecting was actually the product of a completely different approach to science and warfare. Most importantly, they had no idea that humanity's representative was not a desperate diplomat in a small shuttle. It was something else entirely. Something that would change their understanding of power, technology, and the nature of civilization itself. The countdown to humanity's response had begun. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn that the age of easy conquest was about to end. The sensors detected it first, a single contact moving outward from the inner solar system at incredible speed. At first, the alien fleet thought their instruments were malfunctioning. Nothing that large should be able to move that fast. Confirm those readings, Admiral Kethver ordered, his crystalline features showing the first signs of concern. The science officer worked frantically at his controls. running diagnostic after diagnostic. Sensors are operating normally, Admiral. The contact is real. Distance, approximately 2 billion kilometers in closing. Current velocity is 0.75 light speed. A hush fell over the bridge of the Crystal Dawn, 0.75 light. Speed was not fast by galactic standards, but it was far beyond what any primitive species should be capable of achieving. Most newly contacted civilizations barely managed 0.01 light speed in their crude first-generation ships. "What is the size estimate?" Kethver asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. "Massive, Admiral. Initial scans suggest a length of approximately 3 kilometers. Mass readings are unusual. The density patterns do not match any known ship configuration in our databases. 3 kilometers. The Crystal Dawn, flagship of the Zephyrian fleet, was only 1 kilometer long. Most Council ships were built for elegance and efficiency, not size. A 3-kilometer vessel suggested either a massive cargo hauler or something designed for war on a scale the galaxy had not seen in millennia across the fleet. The other commanders were receiving similar reports. On the colliery ship, the hive mind buzzed with agitation. Their collective consciousness could not process what they were seeing. No primitive species had ever built anything so large. It violated everything they understood about technological development. "This cannot be accurate," the Queen Mind declared to her children. "Primitive species lack the resources and knowledge to construct vessels of such magnitude. Our sensors must be detecting an asteroid or natural phenomenon." But the sensors told a different story. The approaching object was definitely artificial. It showed clear signs of controlled propulsion, navigation systems, and energy signatures that could only come from advanced technology. Whatever the humans had sent to meet them, it was no primitive shuttle filled with frightened diplomats. Captain Vexahan stood on the bridge of his warship, studying the tactical displays with growing unease. The Drakmor were warriors first and foremost. They understood the language of strength and power. What they were seeing made no sense according to everything they knew about primitive species. "Are you certain this is a human vessel?" he demanded of his sensor operator. "The propulsion signature matches human fusion technology, Captain. But the scale is far beyond anything we observed during our initial surveys of their system." Vexahan's claws scraped against the metal railing as he gripped it tighter. Perhaps they found derelict technology from an ancient civilization. That would explain the size and capabilities. It was a reasonable explanation. The galaxy was littered with the remains of dead civilizations. Sometimes primitive species found advanced technology they could barely understand, let alone properly use. It usually ended badly for them, but it could temporarily give them capabilities far beyond their natural development level. On the ethereal ship, Elder Zixthara's energy form pulsed with increasingly agitated patterns. The quantum distortions she had been sensing were growing stronger as the human vessel approached. Something about its very existence was warping space-time in ways that should not be possible. "This is not found technology," she announced to the fleet. "The quantum signature is distinctly human. They built this themselves." Her words sent ripples of disbelief through the alien commanders. The ethereals were ancient beings who had watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They could read the quantum echoes left by different technologies like fingerprints. If Elder Zixthara said the approaching vessel was genuinely human-built, then humanity was far more advanced than anyone had imagined. "That is impossible," Admiral Keffer transmitted back. "Our surveys clearly showed a primitive species with basic fusion power and crude chemical rockets. They have barely begun to explore their own star system." "Appearances can be deceiving," Zixthara replied. "Perhaps these humans have been more careful about what they allowed us to observe." The implications of her words hung in the vacuum of space like a poison cloud. If the humans had deliberately hidden their true capabilities, it meant they had known about galactic civilization long before making official contact. It meant they had been preparing for this moment while pretending to be primitive and helpless. More disturbing reports began flowing in from across the fleet. The human vessel was not alone. Long-range sensors were detecting dozens of smaller contacts throughout the solar system. Space installations that had been invisible during the initial surveys were suddenly appearing on scanners. The humans had not just hidden one ship. They had hidden an entire military infrastructure. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we are receiving multiple sensor contacts from previously undetected installations. They appear to be defense platforms, shipyards, and military bases scattered throughout the asteroid belt and outer planets." Kethver stared at the tactical display as dozens of red dots appeared across the human star system. Each one represented a facility or installation that should not exist. The humans had somehow built an extensive space-based infrastructure while appearing to be a primitive planetary civilization. "How did we miss all of this during our initial surveys?" he demanded. "The installations appear to be using advanced stealth technology, Admiral. They were designed to look like natural asteroids and space debris. Only now that they are powering up, can our sensors detect them?" Stealth technology was not unknown to the galaxy, but it was typically the province of the most advanced civilizations. The idea that a supposedly primitive species had mastered such sophisticated concealment methods was deeply unsettling. It suggested that humanity had been watching and learning about galactic technology for far longer than anyone had realized. The approaching human vessel continued to grow larger on the sensors. As it drew closer, more details became visible. The ship was not built like any vessel in the galactic databases. Instead of the flowing, organic curves favored by most council races, it was all angles and brutal efficiency. Armor plating covered every surface. Weapon emplacements bristled from its hull like the spines of some mechanical predator. "By the void," whispered the Aquari captain, her tentacles curling in. "Distress. That is not a diplomatic vessel. That is a warship." She was right. Every line of the approaching ship spoke of violence and destruction. It had been designed with one purpose in mind: to fight and win battles against superior numbers and technology. The humans had not sent diplomats to negotiate their surrender. They had sent their military to deliver a message. Captain Vexahan felt a mixture of respect and alarm as he studied the human warship. As a warrior, he could appreciate the brutal elegance of its design. As a conqueror, he recognized a potential threat when he saw one. This was not the crude, desperate gesture of a primitive species. This was the calculated move of a civilization that understood warfare on a galactic scale. "What are those energy readings?" he asked his weapons officer. "Unknown, Captain. The power output is enormous, but the technology is unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be using some form of controlled matter-antimatter reaction, but the containment methods are completely foreign to us." Matter-antimatter reactions were among the most powerful energy sources known to galactic science. Most species did not master such technology until they had been spacefaring for centuries. The fact that the humans had not only mastered it, but had apparently improved upon standard galactic techniques was deeply troubling. As the human ship drew closer, its true scale became apparent. 3 kilometers of armored death moving through space with purpose and precision. Its fusion drives burned like miniature stars, pushing the massive vessel at speeds that should have torn it apart. Yet it held together, protected by technologies the aliens could not identify or understand. "Deceleration burn detected," reported the sensor operator on the Crystal Dawn. "The human vessel is reducing velocity for final approach." What happened next defied everything the aliens thought they knew about physics and engineering. The human ship did not gradually slow down like a normal vessel. Instead, it performed a controlled deceleration that should have reduced its crew to paste against the bulkheads. The G-forces involved were beyond what any known species could survive. Yet the ship held together. Whatever technology the humans were using to protect themselves from acceleration forces was as advanced as everything else about their mysterious vessel. They had not just built a warship. They had built a warship that operated according to principles the galaxy's most advanced civilizations did not understand. Elder Zixthora S energy form flickered with patterns of deep concern. The inertial compensation systems on that vessel are beyond anything we have seen. They are manipulating gravitational fields in ways that should require technology we do not possess. Are you saying the humans are more advanced than we are? Admiral Kethver asked, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. I'm saying that their approach to technology is completely different from ours. Where we have focused on efficiency and elegance, they appear to have focused on raw power and brutal effectiveness. The results are impressive. The human warship finally came to a stop relative to the alien fleet. It positioned itself between the Council ships and Earth, a clear statement of protective intent. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council found themselves facing a species that was not asking for permission to exist. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, the communications officer announced. Admiral Kethver straightened in his command chair, preparing to hear the usual words of submission and negotiation. Perhaps the humans had simply wanted to impress them with their largest ship before surrendering. Many primitive species tried such gestures before accepting the inevitable. Put it through, he ordered. The main display flickered and showed the bridge of the human vessel. The commander was a female of their species, dressed in a dark uniform covered with symbols of rank and authority. Her expression was calm and professional, showing none of the fear or desperation the admiral expected to see. I am Captain Sarah Chun of the United Nations ship Indomitable, she said in clear, precise tones. Welcome to the Sol System. I appreciate your patience in waiting for our response. Before we proceed with formal relations, there are several things we need to discuss. The words hit the alien commanders like physical blows. This human was not surrendering. She was not begging for mercy. She was speaking to them as equals, as if she had some kind of authority to negotiate terms with the representatives of galactic civilization. Admiral Kethver found his voice after a moment of stunned silence. I am Admiral Kethver of the Galactic Council. You will prepare to receive our diplomatic delegation immediately. Your species will be evaluated for possible inclusion in the galactic community according to established protocols. Captain Sheen's expression did not change. I'm afraid that's not how this is going to work, Admiral. You see, we've been aware of your council and its protocols for quite some time. We've studied your expansion patterns, your subjugation techniques, and your standard operating procedures. We've decided that we prefer a different arrangement. The alien fleet fell silent. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no primitive species had ever spoken such words. No newly contacted civilization had ever dared to challenge the established order. The very concept was alien to everything they understood about how the galaxy worked. But as Captain Chen continued speaking, it became clear that humanity was about to change everything the galaxy thought it knew about power, technology, and the natural order of civilization. The age of easy conquest was about to end, and the aliens were about to learn that sometimes the prey becomes the predator when it has enough time to prepare. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking directly at the alien commanders through the communication screen. Her calm confidence seemed to fill the space between the human ship and the alien fleet. Behind her, the bridge. Crew worked quietly at their stations, showing no signs of fear or nervousness. Let me explain our situation more clearly, Chun continued, her voice steady and professional. For the past 137 years, humanity has been monitoring galactic communications. We know about your council. We know about your expansion methods. We know about what you call primitive species protocols. Admiral Kethver felt his crystalline skin grow cold. 137 years meant the humans had been watching since before they had achieved faster-than-light travel. They had been studying galactic civilization while pretending to be isolated on their single planet. That is impossible, Kethver said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Our surveys clearly showed a species confined to one world with basic technology. Captain Chen smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Your survey showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. We learned very early that the galaxy has a particular way of dealing with new species. Peaceful integration for those who submit. Conquest for those who resist. We decided we preferred neither option. She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display changed to show a star map of the local galaxy. Red lines trace the expansion. Patterns of various council species over the past several thousand years. The pattern was clear and disturbing. Every newly contacted species had either joined the council as junior members or had been conquered and enslaved. The Zirithi Collective, Chun said, pointing to one section of the map. Contacted 800 years ago. They tried to maintain their independence. Their homeworld is now a mining colony operated by the Colliery, the Bendari Federation. Contacted 300 years ago. They negotiated for equal membership in the council. They're now administrative servants managing council bureaucracy on 17 worlds. The alien commanders watched in growing horror as Chun displayed detailed knowledge of galactic history that should have been impossible for a primitive species to obtain. She knew about secret deals, hidden conquests, and political arrangements that were classified at the highest levels of council security. The Thylery Empire was the last species to seriously resist council expansion, Chun continued. That was 450 years ago. They had advanced weapons and a strong military. It took the combined council fleet 3 years to break. Their survivors are scattered across the galaxy as indentured workers. Captain Vexahan leaned forward on his command throne, his reptilian features twisted with suspicion. How do you know these things? This information is restricted to Council military archives. We know because we've been listening, Chun replied. Simply, your communication networks are quite extensive. Very useful for gathering intelligence if you know how to access them properly. We've been studying your languages, your culture, your technology, and your methods for over a century. The implications hit the alien fleet like a physical blow. If the humans had been monitoring Council communications for over a century, they knew everything. Military capabilities, political structures, economic systems, trade routes, even the locations of heavily guarded homeworlds. On the Colliery ship, the hive mind recoiled in shock. The Queen Mind reached out to touch the secure communication networks that connected her to other Colliery colonies. To her horror, she found traces of intrusion. Subtle markers that suggested the networks had been compromised for decades. The humans had been inside their most private communications. Impossible, the Queen Mind broadcast. Our networks are quantum encrypted with bioneural locks. No outside species has the capability to penetrate them. Captain Chun turned her attention to the Colliery ship. Queen Mind designation 77 Alpha 3. Your primary colony world orbits the star you call home nest in what we designate the Kepler 442 system. Your secondary breeding facility is located on the moon of the gas giant in the Ross 128 system. Your deep space mining operations are concentrated in the asteroid fields of the Volf 359 system. The hive mind went completely silent. The information Chun had just recited was among the most closely guarded secrets of the Colliery race. Only the highest-ranking Queen Minds knew the exact locations of the breeding facilities. The coordinates were protected by layers of quantum encryption that should have been unbreakable. Elder Zixthara's energy form flickered with patterns of deep alarm. As an energy being, she was particularly sensitive to communication networks and data flows. Now that she was looking for them, she could detect the subtle signs of human intrusion throughout the galactic network infrastructure. You have been inside our systems for decades, she said, her voice carrying undertones of respect mixed with fear. How did you accomplish this without being detected? We approached the problem differently than you would expect, Chun explained. Most galactic species develop elegant, efficient systems based on energy manipulation and quantum mechanics. We took a more direct approach. We built our intrusion systems using brute force computational methods and distributed processing. Networks, she paused to let that sink in. While you were looking for sophisticated attacks using advanced physics, we were using millions of simple programs running on basic computers scattered throughout space. Quantity over quality, persistence over elegance. The alien commanders were beginning to understand that they had fundamentally misjudged humanity. These were not primitive mammals stumbling into galactic society. These were patient, methodical predators who had been stalking the galaxy for over a century. Admiral Kethfer tried to regain control of the situation. Even if you have been gathering intelligence, you are still one species against the combined might of the Galactic Council. You cannot possibly challenge our authority. Captain Sheen's expression did not change. You're right that we're outnumbered. The Council controls thousands of star systems and trillions of citizens. But you're making the same mistake that every established power makes when facing a determined opponent. You're assuming that superior numbers automatically mean superior capability. The display behind her changed again, this time showing technical readouts and specifications. The alien commanders stared in disbelief at what they were seeing. Power output levels that should have been impossible. Weapon systems based on principles they did not recognize. Defensive technologies that seemed to violate known physics. This is the UNS Indomitable, Chun said with obvious pride. 3 kilometers of human engineering. She's powered by controlled matter-antimatter reactions contained within gravitational field generators of our own design. Her primary weapons are accelerated particle beams capable of achieving 97% light speed. Her defensive systems include adaptive armor that restructures itself in response to incoming attacks. Captain Vexahan studied the technical specifications with growing unease. As a warrior, he could read weapon capabilities better than most. What he was seeing suggested firepower levels that would challenge even the largest Council dreadnoughts. Your power systems are impossibly inefficient, he pointed out, trying to find some weakness in the human design. The energy waste must be enormous. You're absolutely right, Chun agreed cheerfully. Our systems waste tremendous amounts of energy compared to your elegant designs. But we compensate by generating so much power that the waste doesn't matter. Crude but effective. She gestured to the technical display. While you've spent millennia perfecting efficient energy use, we've spent centuries learning how to generate unlimited power. While you've developed elegant weapons that conserve resources, we've built weapons that don't need to conserve anything. The philosophical difference was becoming clear. Galactic civilization had evolved along paths of efficiency and conservation. They had learned to do more with less, to achieve maximum results with minimum energy expenditure. Humanity had gone the opposite direction, developing technologies that used overwhelming force to solve problems. This ship represents just one approach we've taken, Chun continued. We've also developed other technologies that might interest you, for example, our electronic warfare capabilities. The display changed to show network intrusion protocols and cyber warfare systems. The alien commanders found themselves looking at programs designed specifically to infiltrate and control galactic communication networks. Worse, they were looking at detailed maps of their own ship systems. We've been analyzing your fleet since you arrived in our system, Chun explained. Your communication networks are now completely compromised. Your navigation systems are under our observation. Your weapon systems have been mapped and categorized. Admiral Kethfer frantically checked his ship's security systems. To his horror, he found exactly what Chun had described. Human programs were running deep within the Crystal Dawn's computer networks. They were not doing anything hostile, simply observing and recording. But their presence proved that human claims were not empty boasts. You are inside our ships, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We are, Chun confirmed. We've been inside your ship since you entered our system. Your security protocols are very sophisticated, but they're designed to repel attacks using galactic technology. They weren't prepared for our approach. On the Aquari ship, Captain Reeftha desperately tried to purge the human intrusion programs from her systems. But every time she eliminated one, 2 more appeared. The humans had designed their cyber warfare tools to be self-replicating and adaptive. They learned from each defense and evolved new attack methods in real time. How are you doing this? She demanded, her tentacles writhing in frustration. Distributed processing and evolutionary algorithms, Chun replied. We don't use single programs that can be detected and removed. We use millions of tiny programs that work together and evolve. Kill one, and the others learn from its death and become stronger. The alien fleet was beginning to realize that they were not just outgunned, they were out-hot. Humanity had approached the problem of galactic contact from a completely different direction than any species in recorded history. Instead of trying to join galactic civilization, they had studied it, learned its weaknesses, and prepared to exploit them. What do you want? Elder Zixthara asked, her energy form pulsing with resignation. If you have been preparing for this contact for over a century, you must have specific goals. Captain Chun nodded. We do. We want the galaxy to understand that the age of easy expansion is over. No more primitive species protocols. No more automatic subjugation of newly contacted civilizations. No more assumption that advanced technology gives you the right to rule others. She leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more serious. The Galactic Council is welcome to continue operating in human space, but it will operate according to human rules. Any species that wishes to continue peaceful expansion and trade may do so. Any species that prefers the old ways of conquest and subjugation will find themselves dealing with the rest of our fleet. The rest of your fleet? Admiral Kethver asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Captain Chun smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. Did you really think we would send our only ship to make first contact with 12 different alien civilizations? The Indomitable is our diplomatic vessel. She's here to talk. The implications hung in the vacuum of space like a sword over the alien fleet. If this massive warship was considered a diplomatic vessel, what did humanity consider a military fleet? How many ships did they have? How powerful were their dedicated war vessels? The answers were about to become terrifyingly clear. Admiral Kethver felt the weight of 10,000 years of galactic history pressing down on him. Everything the Council had built, everything they had accomplished, was suddenly in question. He looked at the human captain on his screen and made one last attempt to restore the natural order of things. You speak boldly for a single ship facing the combined might of 12 civilizations, he said, trying to inject authority into his voice. Perhaps it is time to remind you of the reality of your situation. Kethver turned to his weapons officer. Charge all primary batteries. Signal the fleet to assume attack formation. These primitives need to understand their place in the galaxy. Captain. Hyun watched calmly as the alien ships began to move. Their elegant vessels shifted positions with fluid grace, weapon systems powering up in choreographed precision. The formation they took was beautiful to watch, a dance of power that had intimidated countless species across the millennia. I was hoping you would choose differently, Chun said with what sounded like genuine regret. But perhaps a demonstration is necessary, she turned to her crew. Tactical, initiate Operation Mirror. Communications, send the wake-up signal to all listening posts. The response was immediate and devastating. Every alien ship in the fleet suddenly found their weapon systems turning against them. Primary batteries that had been charging for attack swiveled around to target sister ships. Fire control systems locked onto friendly vessels instead of the human battleship. What is happening? Admiral Kethver demanded as his bridge erupted in chaos. His weapons officer frantically worked at his controls, trying to regain command of their systems. Our weapons are not responding to commands, Admiral. They appear to be under external control. Captain Chin's voice cut through the confusion. Your ship's computer systems have been compromised since you entered our solar system. Every command circuit, every control pathway, every data stream has been mapped and infiltrated. We can control your ships better than you can. On the colliery vessel, the hive mind was experiencing something it had never known before. True fear. Their entire ship was no longer under their control. The bio-neural networks that connected the ship to the Queen Mind had been severed. They were trapped inside their own vessel, prisoners of human technology they could not understand. Captain Vexahan roared in rage as his proud warship turned its main guns toward a friendly vessel. This is impossible. Our security systems are Military grade. They cannot be breached by primitive technology. Your security systems are excellent, Chun agreed. They're designed to stop attacks from other galactic civilizations using galactic technology. Unfortunately for you, we don't use galactic technology. We use human technology, designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses in your systems. The demonstration continued for several minutes. Ships powered down and powered up at human command. Weapons targeted whatever the humans chose. Navigation systems plotted courses to destinations selected by human operators. The mighty galactic fleet had become humanity's puppet show. Elder Zixthura's energy form flickered with patterns of defeat. As an ancient being who had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, she recognized a fundamental shift in galactic power when she saw one. "You have changed everything," she said quietly. "We had to," Chun replied. "We studied your history, Elder. We learned about the Thylary Empire, the Zirithi Collective, the Bindari Federation. Every species that tried to maintain independence was eventually conquered or absorbed. We decided that pattern needed to end." The tactical display behind Chun changed to show the entire solar system. What the aliens saw made their worst fears seem optimistic. The system was not empty space with a few hidden installations. It was a fortress. Massive orbital platforms surrounded every major planet. Asteroid mining facilities that doubled as weapons manufacturing centers. Hidden shipyards in the outer system that were larger than most galactic military bases. Defense networks that spanned the entire star system like a three-dimensional web of destruction. "This is what we've been building for the past century," Chun explained. "Not just ships, but an entire military infrastructure designed around one principle. Never again will humanity be at the mercy of those who think they have the right to rule us." The display zoomed in on specific installations. Weapon platforms that bristled with particle accelerators and missile launchers. Shipyards where dozens of vessels larger than the Indomitable were under construction. Resource extraction facilities that could build entire fleets from the raw materials of space. Admiral Kethver stared at the images in growing horror. "How many ships do you have currently operational?" 47 capital ships, 312 heavy cruisers, over 800 destroyers and frigates, and approximately 4,000 support vessels, Chun recited from memory. "Under construction?" "Enough to double those numbers within 2 years. The numbers hit the alien commanders like physical blows. The combined Council fleet that had conquered hundreds of worlds numbered fewer than 2,000 ships total. Humanity had built a military force that could challenge the entire galactic civilization. But that's not the most important number, Chun continued. The most important number is how fast we can build new ships. Our automated shipyards can construct a capital ship in 6 months, a destroyer in 3 weeks. We don't just have a fleet. We have the industrial capacity to replace any losses and expand our numbers indefinitely." Captain Retha floated in. Her water-filled bridge, tentacles curled in despair. "You have been preparing for war against the entire galaxy." "We've been preparing to defend ourselves against the entire galaxy," Chun corrected. "There's a difference. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to rule over other species. We just want to be left alone to develop as we choose." She paused, looking directly at each alien commander in turn. "But if the galaxy insists on following the old patterns of conquest and subjugation, then yes, we are prepared for war." The display changed again, showing detailed intelligence reports on every major Council military installation. Fleet bases, shipyards, command centers, even the heavily defended homeworlds of the Council races. The humans had mapped every strategic target in Council space. "We know where your fleets are based," Chun said matter-of-factly. "We know your supply lines, your communication networks, your political leadership. We've been studying you for over a century, remember? We know exactly how to hurt you if we need to." Elder Zixthura pulsed with resignation. "You could destroy." We could," Chun agreed, "but we don't want to. Destruction is wasteful. We'd much rather have peaceful neighbors than conquered enemies." She gestured to her crew, and the alien ships suddenly found their weapon systems returning to their control. The demonstration was over, but its message was clear. Humanity could take control of Council ships whenever they chose. They could disable entire fleets without firing a shot. "So here's what's going to happen," Chun announced, her voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "The Galactic Council will continue to exist. Species that want to join will still be welcome. Trade will continue. Exploration will continue. Scientific cooperation will continue." She leaned forward, her expression becoming deadly serious. "But there will be no more primitive species protocols. No more automatic subjugation of newly contacted civilizations. No more assumption that advanced technology gives you the right to rule others. Any species that violates these new rules will find themselves facing the full military might of humanity." Admiral Keffer found his voice after a long moment of silence. "And if we refuse? If we choose to maintain the old ways?" Captain Chin's smile was cold as the vacuum of space. "Then you'll discover that humanity has spent the last century developing weapons, specifically designed to destroy galactic civilization. We've studied your weaknesses, Admiral. We know exactly how to bring down your empire." The display behind her showed new images, weapon systems unlike anything in the galactic databases. Planet crackers that could shatter entire worlds. Star killers that could destabilize solar systems. Weapons that use the galaxy's own infrastructure against itself. "We call it the Prometheus Protocol," Chan explained. "If humanity is threatened with extinction, we will take the entire galactic civilization. Down with us. We've had over a century to prepare for this possibility. We are very thorough when we commit to something." The alien fleet fell silent. The magnitude of what they were facing finally became clear. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered or absorbed. They were a fundamental challenge to everything the galaxy had been built on. They had the power to destroy galactic civilization and the will to use it if necessary, but they were also offering an alternative. A new way of doing things that didn't require conquest and subjugation. A galaxy where species could develop according to their own choices rather than having development dictated by their conquerors. "What do you want from us?" Elder Zixthara asked finally. "We want you to go home," Chun said simply. "We want you to tell your governments and your councils and your queens and your emperors that the galaxy has changed. The age of easy conquest is over. From now on, every species gets to choose its own path." She stood up from her command chair, towering over the alien commanders even through the communication screen. "Humanity will be watching. We will be listening. We will be ready. Any species that wants to live in peace will find us to be valuable allies. Any species that wants to continue the old ways of conquest will find us to be their worst nightmare." The communication ended, leaving the alien fleet alone with their thoughts and their fear. The universe they had known for 10,000 years was gone. In its place was something new and terrifying and full of possibilities they had never imagined. Admiral Kethver looked out at the human battleship that still hung between his fleet and Earth. Behind it, he could see the distant lights of the installations and platforms that humanity had built in secret. An entire civilization that had prepared for this moment while pretending to be primitive and helpless. "Set course for home," he ordered quietly. "All ships, prepare for immediate departure." As the alien fleet began to move away from Earth, each commander knew they carried a message that would change the galaxy forever. The humans had arrived, and everything was different now. The strong could no longer simply take what they wanted from the weak. The advanced could no longer automatically rule the primitive. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy would have to learn a new way of doing things. And if they refused to learn, humanity would be waiting to teach them the hard way. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of human determination had begun.